Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet. In today's video, we're going to talk about INEOS taking more control of Manchester United, what that really means, what some of the changes they are starting to implement are, what the future holds, some recruitment talks, some player meetings, and where things are going for the future. Yeah, let's get into it. Today I have not a new intro, just a slightly fixed up version of the old one, so enjoy.
I can't believe it. Football, bloody hell.
All right, so let's get into it then. So first and foremost, there was a report that came out that Sir Dave Brailsford was set to meet with Marcus Rashford and his team shortly. And as far as I understand it, there's been a number of meetings that have occurred in recent times with players, people, the INEOS team, including Rashford. And obviously what they want, INEOS, from, when talked about on Wednesday, this whole thing about everybody being for sale and all that, how it's not really everybody's for sale, it's that everybody's kind of available. And the main thing being, if they want to go, they can go. And if people are asking to leave, they can leave. And that INEOS don't want to be sitting and holding on to people. They don't want to be handing out, contracts and things like that for, people who are just on by default and all of that. At the same time, there are a number of players that they know they'd be better off if those players really get going and can perform back at the highest level. And Rashford is one of them. 30 goal assist players, 30 plus multiple seasons, don't really grow on trees, and selling at the lowest point and trying to buy someone better is not the best situation. I understand when people talk about FFP, PSR when it comes to like academy players and the pure profit. However, when you're talking about those kind of gains, you have to also realize those only count. Those really only help you for one season. So they can make you a significant profit in 1 year, but the player you sign, you're still counting that signing against you next year. And so it's not as big a gain as sometimes people make it out to be. It's not like by doing so you could just spend hundreds of millions without consequence. And the view with a lot of players, including Marcus Rashford in particular, is that the best outcome is that they get more out of him, right? They get more out of him. They get him back to where he's performing at the top level, and that they would have a better player there than the risks and costs associated with selling and replacing. And that's not something that'll go on forever. That's not something they'll say, well, you have years and years to sort this out. As far as I can kind of gather it from talking with people, and I think I've kind of discussed this before, but the INEOS perspective is that you get 2 years for anybody. I think there's even been some talk of this, but you get 2 years. Your second year, you should be performing. And, and so players like, Rashford, they'll want to get him going. But if he doesn't perform next year, that would pretty much likely be it. And it would be the same with a lot of players there. So they're meeting with a lot of them. A lot of it is they really want to understand what's going on with them. There have been concerns raised from players about some of the things that go on around the club that have gone on. If he's going to sit there and talk about the problems that managers have faced at United, which are totally valid, there's plenty of those same things that can go for the players. And INEOS want to really understand and get a full perspective of things and clear the air. Part of this ties into the next point, but as I've said before, their view on things is less manager centric. They want the club to have its own rules, its own discipline, its own settings, its own culture that is independent of a manager. And so when you play for United, you play for the club, not the manager. When you violate rules, you're breaking the club rules, not the manager's rules. And when discipline is done, when things are leveled out, it's going to be done by the club, not the manager. And it's just a bit of a change in the way that things are being addressed. And so they want to understand what players are, and they want to be more responsible for keeping everybody on the same page, keeping people understanding what their plan is, resolving the breakdowns in communication that have occurred that have resulted in problems with so many players, from Sancho, Rashford, Varane, Casemiro, potentially, Garnacho, others, where there's issues that have just come up that shouldn't. Eriksen being unhappy with playtime. These things happen, but you need a better way of addressing it. And so a lot of it, is gathering information from all sides, and INEOS really setting up to help manage the club and manage the players like it should be, where it's not such a manager-centric focus. So they'll be meeting and understanding some of the concerns of the players there and addressing them and seeing what they can do to help to improve the overall for everybody. Because the happier all the players are, the happier the whole team is, the happier everyone is, and the more they get along and the more they're all on the same page and the better communication is, the better the team will perform, period. It's absolutely archaic and silly to get into concepts of warring between managers and players and things like that, and people, going, player power, this and that, because it's pointless. They're all employees of the club, and they should all be on a team working together. Everybody, players, manager, all of them, aligned. It's not a power struggle. It's not a war, and it never should be. Once it's gotten to that point, it's already over. So that encompasses, and leads into a lot of the role changes that are essentially to be expected with United moving forward. I've talked in the past about how INEOS view, again, the manager situation, where at United you've had for a long time this heavily manager-centric focus, right? No real director of football, no real recruitment structure overall. The manager has a lot to say. The manager runs a lot. The manager does discipline. The manager is recruiting players that he wants. The manager's getting rid of players he doesn't like. And there's just too much into it that falls under the role of the manager, where they would like to move forward with a sort of a modern strategy encompassing more of a head coach, like they have at Nice, like Liverpool are likely doing here with their Klopp replacement, like you have in many areas. Even Pep Guardiola has reduced his input on certain areas over the years at City because it's been more successful to leave it up to people who are in charge. And so they're implementing this with the arrival of Wilcox. They're definitely starting to implement the kind of role changes and things like that. I've mentioned before a bit of a separation between youth and first team, even logistically. But there's going to be more to that. They don't want the manager dictating and running the first team, or the youth team, and being involved in that. They want that to be managed by the technical director, and including recruitment, all of that is totally separate areas. They want, obviously communication about roles, communication about all of that, about where players stand, everything to be coming from a club-based area rather than a manager-based area, where technical directors and the people who are all involved in that are more in line with, this is where you're going to fit in, this is how we see it, and being responsible for that. Again, I mentioned before, they want to handle discipline and issues differently. They want to do it at a club level and have club set rules, things like that. So a lot of changes in action that are moving the manager towards this head coaching role, including, of course, as before, the recruitment side of things, and reducing the influence that a manager has. They're not going to sign players that a manager wants that they don't want, or that they're not 100% convinced of. Similarly, they don't want the manager to be able to completely, kill any signing simply because they don't want it without being able to present a very valid argument and alternative that can get agreement from all of the major heads of, taking part in the recruitment. So, there's a lot to that. They want to really, improve the communication of it. And, on the manager topic again, like it's a difficult topic to talk about because I know I don't want to keep talking about it. It's something people are constantly asking about, and it's very hard to kind of clarify it entirely. So the fact of the matter is, like I said, they're changing the scope of the manager. And in some respects, it makes it a lower risk kind of position anyway. Who they sign, where they move forward with this summer, probably doesn't change much if Ten Hag is the manager or someone else is the manager. And that's how it should be moving forward, that there's a continuity regardless of manager. With Ten Hag himself, if you ask people around United, staff, employees, if you contact them or, whatever, any sources that you might have or people have in those areas, and you see it in the articles, it's totally true. Anyone you talk to around United, the impression is that everything is being done, there's all these changes happening, but at the same time, all the basic things are being done as if Ten Hag is there next season. There's been nothing else indicated. So that's totally factually the impression and the way and what you'll get from people within United about Ten Hag's future. Obviously, the other side of the coin is INEOS. They're there. They have their own people, their own decisions, their own thoughts. But until they act or until they do something, this is the reality. This is the reality of what's going on right now. And, as we've seen, they can be potentially unpredictable. I feel that I have information on a different side of what they would like to do, but at the moment, you have within the club, as of now, that there's no evidence that Ten Hag is going anywhere, or that he won't be here next season, and that everything is happening with him in accord. You do, of course, have plenty of people reporting that it's sort of expected to be clarified after the FA Cup. So you can kind of, it's the type of thing I just don't want to keep going on and on about, because no matter what I say, one way or another way, nobody's going to feel sure about it, right? Until it's officially clarified. That's just the reality of it. Nobody's going to feel sure about it until it's officially clarified. And so I would say, don't even listen. Don't even listen to me on this topic right now, because it's not worth it. Don't listen to anybody else on this topic right now, because it's not worth it. Wait for the kind of official clarity, because as we've seen with INEOS, one, you can never really predict what they're going to do or not do. And, it is what it is. I wouldn't let yourself stress about it. The reality of what's happening, though, is all these changes. That is for sure. These are concrete things that are happening all the time right now. And it's a good thing. I mean, it's a very, very good thing. This is essentially what needs to happen is making this kind of overall manager role a bit redundant and focusing on the head coaching side of it. There could definitely be either way changes to assistant managers and things like that too. There is concrete, evidence of that kind of thing happening as well. So moving into recruitment, United with Wilcox in there and with some things kind of settling are as I understand it, ready to kind of start pushing ahead into the next phase of recruitment and start making some more deals and things and actually lining up what they want to do this summer. They have definitely been holding some more regular, recruitment meetings to push forward and finalize these lists and targets and they have all these names. They've already contacted representatives and such prior to get basic information. Now moving forward into the future, and actually getting into those with Wilcox there, and he will be heavily kind of involved in this as the main person at the moment. So they're getting going. You know, the positions of note are still as before. The center back, they still really like Gerard Braithwaite. They still really like Todibo. I could very much see two center backs still coming in. As you saw, there was a report yesterday about Olise from a good journalist in London who was one of the first to break the story on Mason Mount. And I would definitely keep an eye on that. You know, one of the things that you obviously have here is, that's been a big topic of discussion this week, is Jadon Sancho after his performances in Dortmund. And that's one of the examples of these kind of issues with discipline and things that have gone on where it hasn't been best for the club. One way or another, the outcome with Sancho is that his value is diminished heavily, and it reduced the options for United to get him out. Now, if he comes back and he asks to leave, which I think he will, it's going to be hard to sell him because of the things that have been said out there. You've reduced the market for him and diminished his value by allowing things to go the way that they did publicly. And that's not good. But when you look at it, again, I'm one of the views is a very hardline view. Right now, there's only 3 players in the forward line that INEOS feel is fairly secure for right now, and not for super long. Højlund and Garnacho for sure, but for Rashford, he needs to pick it up next season. But those are the only 3 where they figured they've performed at a level in the recent history where they could count on them for the future, or they're young, developing like Højlund. There's a world where Antony isn't here next year, and Sancho isn't here next year, and Greenwood isn't here next year, and Amad Diallo isn't here next year. And you need those forwards and those options, and you need that competitiveness. So the same way they'd be looking at 2 center backs, so that they would have, 3, 4 options, that you need backups, you need redundancies, and you need quality players. And one of the things they certainly want to do is take less risks in the market. Players who are more likely to transition better. And I do think Olise will be a big target. Again, not done, nothing like that. But I believe United are well informed and well interested. But I think that when you look at their philosophy of players needing to be performing by 2 years, in an ideal world, they move Sancho, Greenwood, Antony, and Ahmad. That is the ideal for INEOS. They would move all of them if they can, and bring in probably 2 signings in the front line, which could be afforded by sales of Sancho and Greenwood at the minimum, right? You definitely could pay for by getting wages off with Martial leaving, with Sancho's wages off, with the profit on a Greenwood sale. They could definitely afford to make a couple signings there, and so I think it is an area that will become a focus, no doubt. And then in the midfield as well. And I do expect we'll get some departures in the midfield, like Eriksen and such, that should allow for some space to bring in signings, and definitely that will be a priority. The only other thing I really want to talk about today is obviously following the meeting. I got some of the news, and then there's the reports out of what came out of the INEOS meeting with all of the staff. And, obviously there's some questionable things about, like, that people are maybe not super happy with, return to work rather than working from home. Some of the other changes and cost-cutting measures they're making. The thing is, I really get it. I do. This is their way of putting football first. If they were making profit on the business, I'd be more concerned, but they're not. They're spending money, we're expecting nothing back. And, that's the reality of it. And there'll probably be more changes. I wouldn't be surprised if, part of the return to work type of concept is they expect some people to quit, and they expect to reduce the overall expenses, which is too high. When you look at it overall, the big thing they're kind of struggling with now is the profit and sustainability, that they've maintained big losses in prior years, and they need financially the things to be, they need a profitable year. They need a good year, and they need to reduce costs everywhere that they can, because it's not that 70% cap that's a problem, but the losses. And so I think there's going to be more to come. They definitely feel that there's bloat, that there's too much being spent for what is being offered at United, and there likely will be more administrative changes and things like that moving forward in the future to reduce the spending. So, yeah, I mean that's the main thing that I wanted to cover. As I said, obviously they're taking major control of everything with United, and really controlling the whole aspects of it and changing the role in general. So that's what I have for today. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on, and I will see you in the next one.